Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Astrid Attune. Welcome to our cozy corner of knowledge.
And I'm Dr. Davut Pehlivan. Before we start our presentation, be aware that you can activate subtitles in your preferred language. After watching the full video, you can reach any of the topics anytime by selecting the desired chapter. You can also leave your comments or write down new questions using the link below.
Now, let's start. Shall we? Today, we are here to demystify the ATTUNE clinical trial.
ATTUNE is the first clinical trial that will evaluate a potential new drug for MECP2 duplication syndrome.
It is sponsored by the American biopharmaceutical company Ionis. Ionis has been developing treatments for serious illnesses for more than 35 years.
To ensure we cover all the important topics, we have divided this webinar into two parts. Let's start by exploring the content of the first part.
First, Dr. Pehlivan and I will explain the significance of ION 440 and how it is intended to work in addressing MECP2 duplication syndrome.
Next, we will provide a general overview of clinical trials, with a specific focus on the ATTUNE study.
We will then guide you through clinicaltrials.gov to give you a comprehensive understanding of the ATTUNE study.
All right, I think we are now ready for presenting our first topic.
What is ION 440, Dr. Pehlivan?
Generally, pharmaceutical companies like Ionis use their initials for code names, in this case ION, combined with a series of numbers to give an identity to the drug which will be tested. Here it is 440. This helps to quickly identify the drug that is being used, without revealing its full identity.
Intellectual property is highly regulated in the pharma industry. Now, the intriguing question is, how could this ION 440 help children with MECP2 duplication syndrome?
Our body is constituted of billions of tiny cells. Each of the different types of cells have genetic information to express specific proteins, depending on the cell's function, meaning if they are neurons, muscle cells, or blood cells, they will produce proteins for their specific function. Have you ever wondered how this works for MECP2 duplication syndrome? Let's have a look at a neuron. Neurons, but more generally all human cells, have a nucleus. It is in the nucleus that our genetic information, or DNA, is located. This DNA forms our chromosomes. Today, the one that interests us the most is the X chromosome, where MECP2 gene is located. Through processes such as transcription and translation, the information carried by a gene is transferred to a messenger molecule called mRNA, which then guides the production of a specific protein. Healthy males have a single copy of the MECP2 gene that gives instruction to produce one copy of the MECP2 protein. In the case of male children suffering from MECP2 duplication syndrome, MECP2 gene exists as more than one copy. For many patients, two MECP2 gene copies will lead to the formation of two mRNA, which will result in the formation of two proteins. Some children may have a triplication of the MECP2, which means they have three copies. And some other may have changes to their genes, which may result in somewhere between 2 and 3 times the amount of MECP2.
So how will ION 440 interact with this cascade?
ION 440 is an ASO, which stands for antisense oligonucleotide. It was specially designed by scientists to bind and destroy the MECP2 mRNA. It is thought that this approach may lead to reduction of MECP2 mRNA and may result in an acceptable balance of MECP2 protein in the brain.
As you can see, ION 440 targets the RNA and therefore won't affect the DNA. In 2015, Dr. Zogby tested this theory by administering an ASO that works in the same way as ION 440 in the mice with MDS. That study showed that many symptoms of MECP2 duplication syndrome could be reversed by the drug in these mice. It is not known if the same effect seen in the mice will be seen in people with MECP2 duplication syndrome.
It now needs to be tested in humans. So, you mentioned ATTUNE. What is ATTUNE? What is a clinical trial? How is it usually conducted?
Clinical trials are part of the development process of new treatments. They are conducted in humans after a potential drug has been shown to be safe in preclinical studies, which involve laboratory and animal testing. There are two main types of clinical trials: observational studies and interventional studies. Observational studies, such as a NHS, are designed to learn about a specific disease without a treatment, while interventional studies, like ATTUNE, are made to learn about a new investigational therapy, which can be a drug or a device.
Okay, and what are the different phases of an interventional study?
Interventional studies follow a specific set of standards and are conducted in a series of steps, called phases. Each phase is designed to answer a separate research question. In Phase 1, researchers test a new drug or treatment in a small group of people for the first time. It is often called first-in-humans. This phase is mainly intended to look if different doses of the drug or treatment are safe and well tolerated. It is usually small and relatively quick. In Phase 2, the drug or treatment is given to a larger group of people, and for a longer period to see if it is effective and to further evaluate its safety and tolerability. In Phase 3, the drug or treatment is given to large groups of people to evaluate its efficacy, monitor side effects, and collect information that will allow the drug or treatment to be used safely. Finally, Phase 4 consists of studies that are done after the drug has been approved for the market. It is designed to gather information on the drug's effectiveness in various populations and any side effects associated with long-term use.
Conducting clinical trials for rare diseases must bring challenges for the health authorities and the pharmaceutical companies, right?
Absolutely. Rare diseases often have small patient populations, wide-ranging symptoms, and limited existing data on the progression of the disease. All these can make it very difficult to design and execute a robust trial to assess the effect of a drug. There might also be regulatory and logistical hurdles to overcome, especially if the patient population is spread out geographically. This is why pharmaceutical companies often need to propose adjusted protocols. Sometimes that includes, for example, combining the different phases of clinical trials together.
Usually, success rate for clinical trial is around 10%. This number should not be taken negatively. In last decades, only a few drugs for rare diseases were approved by the FDA for rare diseases. But in 2022 alone, more than half of the new treatments approved by the FDA were for rare diseases.
The progress in rare disease research is truly inspiring and very encouraging for the rare disease community.
Now that we know more about clinical trials, let's have a look at the ATTUNE interventional study. ATTUNE is the first interventional study for MECP2 duplication syndrome and will examine the safety and tolerability of the investigational medicine ION 440. In May 2024, ATTUNE was posted on www.clinicaltrials.gov. But what does all the information written about ATTUNE mean? Let's have a look. First, on Google, let's search for clinicaltrials.gov and click on the website link. On the home page, type MECP2 duplication syndrome in the condition/disease field and click on Search. On the next page, you can see 3 studies. One is from Whitigene. The other 2 down below are from Ionis. The first one, which mentions recruiting, is about the current ongoing natural history study, also called NHS. The ATTUNE study is just below.
Here you see the title of the study. A study to evaluate the safety, tolerability, pharmacokinetics, and pharmacodynamics of intrathecally administered ION 440 in participants with MECP2 duplication syndrome.
Okay, but what does all this mean?
Let's take a look at all those complicated words, one by one. These terms actually express what the researchers at Ionis want to understand about ION 440 before it can go to the next test phase.
At first, the title mentions, evaluate safety. This means that the researchers are checking if the drug causes any harmful effects. They want to make sure that it's safe for people.
Next comes evaluate tolerability. It is about determining how well a patient can tolerate the drug. In other words, it's about determining whether the side effects are manageable or if they're too severe for the patient to continue with the treatment or with the tested dose.
The third term is pharmacokinetics.
This is about understanding how the body interacts with the drug. It involves studying how quickly and efficiently the drug is absorbed, distributed, broken down, and excreted from the body.
By understanding the principles of pharmacokinetics, healthcare professionals can find the right dose for this medicine, optimize drug therapy, minimize side effects, and ensure the best possible outcomes for patients.
To continue, the ATTUNE title mentions, evaluate pharmacodynamics. Pharmacodynamics involves analyzing the biochemical and physiological effects of a drug. It is about understanding how the drug works at the molecular, cellular, and organ levels, in other words, how the drug interacts with the body. ATTUNE will be looking for biomarkers in patients to understand how ION 440 could be affecting the MECP2 protein levels and the function of the cells in the brain.
And finally, the last keyword, intrathecally administered. This means that the drug is delivered directly into the spinal canal. This method is often used for drugs that need to reach the brain or spinal cord, as it allows the drug to bypass the blood-brain barrier, a protective barrier that prevents many substances from entering the brain. All right, we are now prepared to delve into the details of the ATTUNE study. Let's review the information on clinicaltrials.gov. After clicking on the study link, you need to scroll down a little bit and you will find on the right-hand side key information.
First ones are about timelines such as study start, primary completion date, and study completion date.
We can see that the dates are estimates due to the challenges in predicting them accurately.
The number of participants, meaning the patients enrolled in the study, is also an estimate that will evolve as the study progresses. It is also important to note that not all patients will be recruited at the same time or at the same study site.
Here you can see that ATTUNE is an interventional study, as opposed to the NHS, meaning a medical intervention will be performed on participants. Another interesting aspect is that Phase 1 and Phase 2 are being conducted simultaneously. This means that Ionis intends to determine how well ION 440 is tolerated, ensure it is safe, and simultaneously understand how patients react to different doses. As you may remember, in most interventional studies, these two phases are conducted one after the other. Combining them is a specific approach for rare diseases. It is meant to help accelerate the overall clinical trial process.
We understand how important it is for families to know when exactly the study will start recruiting. In reality, it is very hard to determine precisely the start of such a study. Several steps need to be completed before the first injection can occur.
So, let's discuss the key steps involved in starting a clinical trial like ATTUNE.
Before we take a look at how the ATTUNE study will be conducted, let's first discuss what needs to be achieved before an interventional study can start.
You're right, Dr. O'Toole. There are several key steps that need to be completed before a drug can be administered to humans.
First, we have the regulatory approval process. Before a clinical trial can begin, health authorities like the FDA in the US or the EMA in Europe must approve the study plan and necessary documents submitted by the pharma company. This can take many months.
Ionis does not publicly share updates on their conversations with regulatory bodies. However, families can always reach out to their local regulatory body to learn more about a specific study. The next step is trial registration.
After regulatory approval, the trial is published on a public database like clinicaltrials.gov before the first participant is recruited. This is done to inform doctors and patients about the study design.
Ionis published the ATTUNE interventional study on clinicaltrials.gov in May 2024. That's an important milestone.
After that comes the legal clearance and local authority and ethics permissions.
Before administering the drug, it's essential to obtain all necessary legal clearances. Ensure all contracts are in place for the hospital to be able to perform the procedures and permissions from local authorities to ensure the trial adheres to the specific laws and regulations of each country where the trial will be conducted. The hospital also needs to identify all of the personnel who will be needed to perform the different parts of the study and make sure they are appropriately trained to conduct the assessments. It is important to note that each hospital will need to go through this step.
The time required for this process can vary significantly depending on the country and the hospital.
When all steps are completed by Ionis and a hospital, the study can start recruiting patients. Ionis will request a change of the status on clinicaltrials.gov to recruiting and keep up to date the recruiting hospitals to the contacts and location section.
Ionis will also keep advocacy group leaders informed when new information about sites is available. Once local authority permissions are obtained, the next step can start. This is the participants' recruitment. Recruiting participants is a crucial step in a trial. It happens at a study site, meaning at one of the hospitals where the trial will be conducted. During this step, potential participants are identified and checked for eligibility by hospitals.
This phase can also take several months depending on the trials and the study design. For ATTUNE, recruitment of all participants will not happen at once but rather over time because results from the first patient might be needed before proceeding with recruitment of additional patients. Because ATTUNE is a demanding study, with multiple checkups and hospitalizations, families are encouraged to select the study center closest to their home. Each hospital may have its own policies for accepting participants from other countries. These policies are independent of Ionis. It is critical that participants' families can easily communicate with study center personnel in the language of the study site. Additionally, certain assessments, such as questionnaires, must be completed by the participant or the caregiver in country-specific languages.
During the recruitment process, the hospital team guides participants and families through various phases. Let's have a look. First, there is an initial contact. Either the hospital staff may reach out to potential participants' families, or families who are interested can contact sites directly by calling the number or sending an email to contacts listed on clinicaltrials.gov. The purpose of this initial contact is to provide initial information about the study and gauge interest. In addition, informational group presentations can also be provided by the hospitals for families to learn more about the upcoming study. These presentations provide an opportunity to ask questions. The second step is the pre-screening. Interested individuals undergo a pre-screening process to evaluate if they meet the inclusion criteria of the study. We will come back to that point later. After the pre-screening is completed, the potential participant may have individual meetings with the research team. These meetings provide a more detailed overview of the study and what participation would involve. As the fourth and final step of the recruitment process comes the informed consent. Before joining a study, participants or their guardians must sign a document confirming that they have provided informed consent to participate in the research study. This is a critically important step that means everybody understands the purpose of the study, the procedures involved, potential risks and benefits, and their rights a participant has.
Last but not least comes the first visit. Once a participant has been recruited and all regulatory preparations are complete, the participant is invited for the first visit and receives its first dose. This usually happens shortly after recruitment ends. Let's now summarize how the ATTUNE study will be conducted.
ATTUNE will divide people with MECP2 duplication syndrome enrolled in the study into two age groups. The study will consist of two separate parts, or periods. The first part is called multiple ascending dose, in short MAD. It is estimated to last up to 36 weeks for each patient. During the first part, doses will be increased sequentially to see how much of ION 440 can be given safely. In order to properly evaluate the effect of ION 440, a control group is included in the first part of the trial. This control group will undergo a sham procedure. Participants will be randomly assigned to receive either ION 440 or a sham treatment. We will come back to this point in the second episode of this webinar. In Part 1, 75% of participants will receive ION 440 and 25% will receive a sham treatment. Part 1 is considered to be completed for participants that have received at least one dose of ION 440 and attended all study visits through the follow-up stage. After Ionis successfully completes a safety review during the early part of the trial, participants who complete Part 1 will have an opportunity to receive ION 440 for up to 156 weeks during the open-label extension, known as Part 2, or LTE. At this stage of the study, all participants enrolled in the LTE will receive ION 440. Throughout the whole study, patients from each group will be enrolled sequentially and staggered at predefined time points because results from the first patient might be needed before proceeding with recruitment of additional patients. Let's have a look at what this means exactly. Group A, consisting of patients aged from 8 to 65 years old, will enroll first and receive dose A or a sham. All participants receiving dose A or sham will automatically transition into the long-term extension or LTE after their Part 1 is complete. This process will be the same for subsequent cohorts in the study. After assessing the safety and tolerability of dose A, a different group of patients aged between 8 and 65 years old shall receive dose B or a sham. Here again, after completing Part 1, patients will transition into the LTE part of their group. While patients from Group A receive dose B, younger patients, meaning patients from Group B, with children between 2 and 7 years old, will receive dose A or a sham and continue to their LTE part. As such, Group A is independent from Group B for dose escalation. If results from first patients demonstrate the dose level is safe, the next group of patients aged between 8 and 65 years old will receive the next higher dose. A new higher dose in Group B, on the other hand, relies on both completion of the lower dose in Group B and completion of this prospected dose in Group A. As with other early-stage trials like this, there may be brief screening and enrollment pauses throughout ATTUNE to evaluate the results. Patients who received a sham treatment in Part 1 will automatically be administered with ION 440 in Part 2 during the LTE at the dose level that was tested in their group. It is important to note that depending on the tolerability and safety, ION 440 may be required to undergo additional research or research may be discontinued. It is also important to keep in mind that participation to a clinical trial is voluntary and families can withdraw at any time if they feel it is not in their child's best interest.
Well, this was really helpful for me. I hope for you too. If you have any additional questions, drop them using the link in the video description below. Now, let's continue with the inclusion and exclusion criteria, Dr. Attune.
As you might know, not all patients can be recruited in a clinical study. Patients are selected according to rules that decide who can participate, also called inclusion and exclusion criteria. Inclusion criteria are the characteristics that a person must have to be allowed to join a clinical study. Exclusion criteria are the characteristics that disqualify a person from joining the study. These criteria help researchers select the right participants to ensure the study will answer the specific research questions it was designed for.
These criteria will be discussed and evaluated during the recruitment of patients, such as during the screening visit.
Be aware that there are other criteria that can only be discussed during the informed consent process as the site evaluates the eligibility of the candidate participant.
What is stated in clinicaltrials.org might be overwhelming, so I will try to simplify. But remember, for more details, have a look at the website or get in contact with the site or Ionis. To be able to participate in the first part of the ATTUNE study, a patient should be a male between 2 and 65 years old. Younger boys are not considered at this point because of the demanding nature of the study, meaning the route of application of ION 440 and multiple checkups. Have at least one parent or caregiver who is 18 years or older. This person must be able to give permission for the participant to join the study, come to all study visits, give feedback about the participant's symptoms and how they're doing, and follow all study rules. In addition, the candidate participant must have a confirmed diagnosis of MDS, with a proven genetic duplication of MECP2. The candidate must have been taking their current medications at the same doses for at least 3 months before the study starts. And finally, the candidate must be able to do all study procedures and visits.
Having all these criteria is necessary for a candidate, but it does not guarantee a participation if he has one or more of the exclusion criteria.
Yes, this is right, Dr. Attune. A patient cannot join the study if he has a complex MECP2 duplication, including terminal duplication, triplication or translocation or complex clinical features. Since MECP2 duplication syndrome in girls is often resulting from complex mutation or from a translocation, girls are not eligible at this point. This criteria might be reevaluated at a later time. A candidate with significant abnormal vital signs or ECG readings at screening visits is also not permitted to join ATTUNE. Having a known brain or spinal diseases, such as severe scoliosis, could interfere with the lumbar puncture procedure. It is therefore an exclusion criteria. Any other factors that could affect the safety of the medical procedure itself is also a reason for exclusion. We will come back to the medical procedure later in this webinar. A patient who has experienced status epilepticus in the past 6 months is not allowed to receive ION 440. Status epilepticus is a serious and potentially life-threatening condition in which a person has an epileptic seizure that lasts longer than 5 minutes, or when seizures occur close together and the person doesn't recover between them. A candidate who has any other disease, condition, or circumstance that could interfere with the study or pose a risk to the participant is not allowed to join the study. As mentioned earlier, this will be determined by the hospital team during the recruitment phase. Having an active infection requiring for antiviral or antimicrobial therapy that will not be completed before the study starts is a reason for not accepting the candidate. Participants who have been treated with an experimental drug, biological agent, or device within 30 days of screening, or within 5 half-lives of the experimental drug, will not be able to join the ATTUNE study. The reason for this is that there would not be enough information of the long-term use of the experimental drug, and in addition, possible interferences with ION 440 could occur and lead to wrong interpretations of the results. For the same reason, MDS patients who were recently treated with an oligonucleotide or currently in a clinical trial of an experimental agent or device are not allowed to join the ATTUNE study. The same applies for patients who had a gene therapy, cell transplantation, or other experimental brain surgery. Finally, patients currently enrolled in a clinical trial of an experimental agent or device are not eligible to join the ATTUNE study. To participate in the second part of the ATTUNE study, the candidate participant must have finished Part 1. Part 1 is considered to be completed for participants that have received at least 1 dose of ION 440 and attended all study visits through the follow-up stage.
This includes also participants that have received a sham treatment in Part 1. Additionally, all inclusion and exclusion criteria for joining Part 1 of the study still apply for Part 2.
However, a participant cannot join Part 2 of the study if he has developed any new disease or condition, or if anything else happened during Part 1 of the study that makes the hospital medical team think the participant shouldn't continue the study. This could be anything that might interfere with the study or put the participant at risk.
Well, Dr. Mekbing, this was really helpful for me. I hope for you at home as well.
Yes, this was a lot. Let's take a break to digest all this information. before we continue with other important topics.
In the next episode, we'll cover the medical procedure for administering ION 440, explain the sham control group, and discuss the expected benefits of ION 440. We'll also touch on general communication and the next steps after Attune. As we close out the first part of this webinar, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the incredible team that made this possible. This webinar has been created by MECP2, a European organization for MDS.
We're also grateful to the families who shared their questions with us, allowing us to address their concerns.
I'd like to thank the team at Ionis for their invaluable review and feedback on the content.
A special thanks to Katie Westernial, David Covini, and Davut Pehlivan for their hard work in drafting the answers to those questions.
We're also indebted to Dr. Dupree Mekbing, second of his name,
and Dr. Astrid O'Toole for the guidance and expertise throughout the webinar.
And finally, a round of applause for Caroline and David Covini, who provided the artistic direction and scenario for this webinar.
We hope that you enjoyed the first part of this webinar about Attune. Don't forget that you can ask any additional question you might have in any language by clicking on the link below. We will try to answer them as quickly as possible.
We will also be sharing with you an e-booklet that contains all questions and answers from the initial survey shortly. You can leave your feedback on the quality of the webinar to help us in improving the quality of the next ones. Take care and stay tuned.